Hello everyone and welcome to the next game we'll be showing from round 3 of this year's FIDE Candidates Tournament. It is Gukesh with the white pieces against the 2-times winner of the FIDE Candidates Tournament, Nepomniachtchi. Of course, both of them really want to win. Gukesh still undefeated, Nepo still undefeated. Both of them have won a game so far. And yeah, they want to continue doing well, but it's still round 3. There are 14 rounds in the FIDE Candidates Tournament. This is only the beginning. And we even have a nice photo of this moment. There you have it, the handshake before the actual game. As usual, no eye contact, and you can see no hidden messages from Gukesh. He buttoned all 4 of the buttons on his sleeve, so yeah, that's very nice to know. Now let's check out the game. Gukesh with the white pieces opens with d4. We have knight to f6 by Nepo, c4, e6, g3, going for the Catalan, and now pawn to d5. We have bishop to g2 and pawn to c5 now. The open Catalan, we have c captures, and now knight captures on d5, already an incredibly rare variation, almost never seen in top-level chess, and when I say almost, I mean never. Knight to f3, first moment where Gukesh takes sort of a pause. He spent some 7 minutes on this move, and Nepo just blitzing everything out. C captures on d4, we have castles and bishop to c5. Knight captures on d4, castles, and now knight to b3. Going after the bishop, bishop back to e7, and pawn to e4. Chasing away the knight, and will be offering a queen trade. So knight to b4 would be dangerous to trade queens now, because then knight to c2 might be an issue. Your rook is still stuck on a1. So knight to c3. Well, do you trade now, or do you do something else? Now, okay, the b1 square has been freed for the rook, so you can't really take advantage of this. Just developing knight 8 to c6 and bishop to e3. We have a trade now. Queen captures on d1, rook 8 captures on d1, and now there are some games where e5 was played. Also b6 is a known move, but here we have knight to e5. And it is now, as of move 13, that we have a completely new game. The idea is bring the knight to c4, put pressure on the bishop and the b2 pawn, force the bishop to go back to c1, and then, take it from there. As usual in these sort of Catalan type positions, and this is basically now a pseudo Tarash. When f4 is played, this bishop will be a monster, and this bishop will be a terrible piece. So this is the question of the game, and what the game will be about. Can Nepo make use of his light square bishop? If not, then he will just have to suffer for like 100 moves before it's decided whether he can or cannot get a draw this game. So okay, pawn to a3, knight b to c6, and now pawn to f4. Grabbing more space, kicking away the knight, knight to c4 with the attack on the bishop and the pawn, bishop back to c1, and now pawn to f6. You could try other moves, but this is also very solid. The idea is you will be able to play e5 at some point, but if white strikes with d5, you can even play f5, or if f5, you can play e5. So it's just a very flexible setup. We have rook f to e1 and rook to b8, getting rid of the bishop's diagonal. And now, as the bishop isn't very useful here, bishop back to f1. Attacks the knight, and now knight back to d6. We have knight to b5, offering a trade, and Nepo trades very happily. Knight captures, we have bishop captures, and now king to f7, slowly starting to bring the king into the game. Bishop to e3, fighting for that c5 square, and pawn to a6. Chases away the bishop, bishop to e2, and now pawn to b5. So both players still have the bishop pair, but like we said, it's going to be a problem for Nepo to make any sort of use from the bishop on of the bishop on c8. And while you could play maybe bishop to c5 here, then you just allow a trade. For example, captures, and yes, the knight will be dominating the bishop here, but maybe it's even better to keep the material on the board, which is what Gukesh plays. He plays knight to c5. And there really isn't a way to do anything with the light square bishop unless you get rid of this knight on c5. So okay, first we have rook to d8, offering a trade of rooks. Gukesh trades once, we have captures, and now rook to c1. And Gukesh burned a lot of time reaching this position. It's only move 25, and he's down to 20 minutes on the clock, whereas Nepo has over an hour on the clock. And here we have bishop to b6. It's very, like I said, that's the whole point. It's very hard to develop the bishop. If you try something, for example, knight to a5, and this is the top engine line. The engine really likes to bring the knight to c4, and then after, let's say, king to f2, knight to c4, you just have a very strong knight here. Again, you're attacking the bishop and the pawn. You don't have bishop back to c1, so you're gonna have to trade here. But the problem is, after b captures on c4, white will not just capture on c4 and allow rook captures on b2. There is the in-between, a nice Zwischenzug, bishop to d4. The pawn is protected, and you're gonna capture on c4 on the next move. So you can play this to maintain the bishop pair. You're gonna have to sacrifice a pawn for this. And I imagine if Nepo was in any way playing for a win here, that this is what he would go for. But he just went for bishop to b6, played very quickly. We have king to f2, and now bishop captures on c5. He gives up the bishop pair. Bishop captures on c5, and now he develops his light square bishop, bishop to b7. So it's now in the game, but at what price? We have king to e3 by Gukesh, and now rook to d8, grabbing hold of the open d file. And the question is how to continue here. Best would be to strike with pawn to a4. If you strike with pawn to a4, you are now threatening to win material, and if black captures, now you go rook to c4, then you capture on a4, and then you go after the a6 pawn, and in the long run, you will be up a pawn here. But we have bishop to b6 by Gukesh, going after the rook, rook to d7, and now rook to d1. And this is just, I imagine, a decision because Gukesh was much lower on time. Otherwise, you keep the tension here and you strike with pawn to a4. But he played rook to d1, and now Nepo just traded. Rook captures, bishop captures, and pawn to g6. We have bishop to c5, and now pawn to h5. We have pawn to b3, bishop to c8, and now pawn to a4. Putting pressure on the queen side now, but with rooks off the board, it is not as potent as a few moves ago. So pawn to e5, we have a captures on b5, a captures on b5, and pawn to f5 now. King to g7, of course you don't capture and allow bishop captures on h5. That would create a passed pawn for Gukesh. F captures on g6, and now bishop to g4 before recapturing. Point is that he's still giving Gukesh an opportunity to make a mistake. It's not really a mistake, but if captures, then the pawns are really just controlling the very nice squares here. The king will capture on g6, and it will be black who will be pushing for the win here. So instead, bishop to c2 by Gukesh, we have bishop to e6, and now king to d2. And here, once this king to d2 was played, and you can even see it if you download the original PGN of the actual game that was created on the electronic board, Gukesh was awarded additional time. So an additional half an hour on the clock upon reaching move 39, which of course should not be possible. You should be awarded additional time when you reach move 40. And Nepo was, very annoyed by this because there's no way to actually push for anything here, but he is doing much better on the time. Before this move was played, Gukesh was down to 2 minutes, and Nepo had well over half an hour on the clock, and Gukesh still needs to make 2 moves in order to reach time control to be awarded additional time. But for some reason, the clock malfunctioned. There wasn't any explanation given. Nepo just called the arbiter, and the arbiter said, okay, continue the game. Probably, I don't know what he said, but they did continue the game. And, well, Nepo was obviously very upset. I mean, it's not that it's a critical position or anything, but still, for a candidates tournament, such an event should not occur. And, okay, Nepo played pawn to b4 and bishop to d1. The point is, okay, now it's time for Gukesh to make move 40. Literally any move here you make with white is not going to spoil your position unless you play something like bishop captures on b4 and blunder a full piece. But okay, he played bishop to d1. Here, time control should have been reached, and Nepo just played king captures on g6, and he was in this position on move 40 that Gukesh and Nepo agreed to a draw, as there is nothing more to be done here. It seems like it's a very playable position, but unless you really want to, force your opponent to make the absolute best possible move in a very dry position, hoping that he messes up something. But Gukesh is not that kind of a player. I mean, if anyone messes this up, it's definitely not Gukesh. But for those of you who like it when I continue the games, we could give sort of how this game could have continued. For example, king c1. And now if you want to make some progress, you're going to have to play something like knight to d4. Okay, we can trade here. Captures. Let's say king to d2. f5, let's say e captures, king captures, bishop captures on h5, and now bishop captures on b3. And okay, black has 2 connected pawns on the queen side, white has 2 connected passed pawns on the king side. Let's say king d3, king to e5 defending the pawn, and now pawn to h4. You could start marching forward, let's say bishop to e2, preparing to push the b pawn, king to c2, stopping that, and now king to e4. Bishop g6 check, king to e3, pawn to h5, and now bishop to g8, moving the bishop, preparing pawn to b3 check, but also covering the h7 square. h6, b3 with check, king to b2, and now d3. But now it's time to trade. Bishop captures on d3, and you don't even have to take the bishop. It's much cleaner to actually go for the pawn. h7, you're gonna give up the bishop, captures, king captures, and it will be a draw by insufficient material. In my opinion, the best kind of draw. So yeah, that's what happened in this game. Not a very exciting one, but that's what you get when you play the Catalan in such a big event in a classical game. Gukesh definitely misplayed this. He should have kept the tension with this pawn to a4 move, or just trying to figure out maybe a different way to keep the tension. But yeah, a4 is not really keeping the tension. It's creating problems. But rook to d1. I mean, this rook is much better than this rook on d7, and with the bishop pair still on the board, you do not trade rooks here. But yeah, he made it easy for Nepo. I mean, if Magnus was wielding the white pieces here, Nepo would be suffering for some 150 moves had this position been reached. But you know, Gukesh could have also done the same, but he was very low on time. So yeah. That's the game. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Here are the standings after the 3 rounds have been played. Fabiano, Nepo, and Gukesh, all 3 on 2 points. Prague and Vidit on a point and a half, as they have lost the game, and Hikaru, Nijat, and Alireza on 1 point as they have lost the game but have not won a game for the moment. Yeah, very interesting, and not a lot of surprises. Okay, we were expecting Fabi and Nepo to be leading the tournament. Then you have Gukesh and Prague, who are the newcomers, and Vidit. Hikaru, yeah, okay, he lost the game, but it's only round 3. Nijat, as expected, he's the bottom seed. But okay, maybe we were not expecting Alireza on 1 point. Again, it's only the beginning of the tournament. Anything can still happen. Anyone can still win it. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed that. And the pairings for the next round are Nakamura will be facing Pragnananda, Nepomniachtchi will be facing Vidit, Caruana will be facing Gukesh, and Nijat Abaso will be facing Alireza Firuza in round 4, which happens today. And then we have a rest day. So you know, that's great for the players, but it will be, you know, tough on us. We will be sad for a day, but then the joy will continue. So yeah, that's the game. Hope you guys enjoyed it and that you're enjoying this short coverage of the candidates tournament so far. I would like to thank Andreas Rosenthal, David Gasparian, Henry Hunt, Max, and Tom for your contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing to check up on your wonderful suggestions and whatever else happens in the chess world. So thank you all. I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day.